Beauty and the Beast is a 2017 American musical romantic fantasy film. It is a live-action remake of Disney's 1991 animated film Beauty and the Beast, itself an adaptation of Jean-Marie Le Prince de Beaumont's version of the fairy tale Beauty and the Beast. 6. Produced by Walt Disney Pictures and Mandeville Films. 7. The film was directed by Bill Condon from a screenplay by Stephen Chbosky and Evan Spiliotopoulos. It stars Emma Watson and Dan Stevens as the title characters, with Luke Evans, Kevin Kline, Josh Gad, Ewan McGregor, Stanley Tucci, Audra McDonald, Gugum Bathara, Ian McKellen, and Emma Thompson in supporting roles. 8. The live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast was first announced in April 2014, with Condon attached to direct. The cast members signed on between January and April 2015, and filming took place primarily at Shepperton Studios in England from May to August of that year. The estimated production budget was around $255 million. Beauty and the Beast had its world premiere at Spencer House in London on February 23, 2017, followed by its American premiere at the El Capitan Theatre in Hollywood on March 2. It was then released theatrically in the United States in standard Disney Digital 3D, RealD 3D, IMAX, and IMAX 3D formats, as well as Dolby Cinema, on March 17. 9. The film received generally positive reviews from critics, who praised its cast, songs, and visual detail. 10. It grossed over $1.2 billion worldwide, becoming the second highest grossing film of 2017 and the 10th highest grossing film of all time. Amongst Disney's live-action adaptation remakes, it is the second highest grossing film to date. The film received several accolades, including nominations for Best Production Design and Best Costume Design at the 90th Academy Awards. Plot: a selfish and unkind prince hosting a ball is visited in his castle by an enchantress disguised as an old beggar woman, who offers him an enchanted rose in exchange for shelter from a storm. When he rebuffs her, she reveals her true form and transforms him into a beast and his servants into household objects before erasing them from the memories of their loved ones. For the curse to be broken, the prince must learn to love someone and have that person love him back before the rose sheds its last petal, or else he will remain a beast forever. Several years later, in a nearby village, Belle, the bookworm daughter of widowed artist Maurice, dreams of adventure while constantly rejecting advances from Gaston, an arrogant hunter and war veteran. One day, Maurice becomes lost in the forest and after escaping a pack of wolves seeks refuge in the beast's castle. The beast imprisons him after he catches him stealing a rose from the garden for Belle. Belle travels to the castle and offers to take her father's place as prisoner. The beast agrees. Belle meets the castle's servants, including Candelabra Lumiere, Mantle Clock Cogsworth, Feather Duster Plumette, Teapot Mrs. Potts, and her son Chip, a teacup. When she finds the rose, the beast angrily forces her to flee outside. Belle is ambushed by wolves and the beast rescues her, getting injured in the process. As she nurses his wounds, they bond. He shows her a gift from the enchantress, a book that transports readers to their desired location. She and the beast visit her childhood home in Paris, where they discover a plague doctor's mask, and Belle realizes that when she was an infant, she forcibly departed with Maurice after her mother's death from the bubonic plague, the one thing Maurice could not bring himself to reveal. Meanwhile, Maurice fails to convince the other villagers of the beast. Gaston agrees to help, seeing rescuing Belle as the perfect opportunity to win her hand in marriage. When Maurice discovers his ulterior motive, Gaston abandons him to be devoured by wolves. Maurice is rescued by the town hermit Agath, but Gaston convinces the village to send Maurice to an insane asylum. Belle discovers Maurice's predicament via a magic mirror, another gift from the enchantress. The beast releases her to save him. Arriving back in town, she reveals the beast via the mirror, shocking the townsfolk and proving her father's sanity. Realizing Belle has fallen for the beast, Gaston jealously has her thrown into the asylum carriage with Maurice, then rallies the villagers to slay the beast. Belle tells Maurice about her mother's death, and the two escape. Gaston attacks the depressed beast, who regains his spirit upon seeing Belle return. He spares Gaston's life, but Gaston shoots the beast twice from an unstable bridge. Its collapse sends Gaston falling to his death. The beast dies just as the last petal falls, and the servants become inanimate. As Belle tearfully professes her love to him, Agathe reveals herself as the enchantress and undoes the curse, restoring the beast and his servants to their human forms along with the villagers' memories, as well as restoring the castle to its true appearance. Belle and the prince host a ball for the kingdom. Cast. Main article, list of Disney's Beauty and the Beast characters. Top row, Emma Watson, Dan Stevens, Luke Evans, and Kevin Kline play Belle, Beast, Gaston and Maurice. Middle row, Josh Gad, Ewan McGregor, Stanley Tucci, Audra McDonald play Elifu, Lumiere, Cadenza, and Madame de Garde-Robe. Bottom row, Gugum Bathara, Hattie Morahan, Ian McKellen, and Emma Thompson play Plumette, Agathe, Cogsworth, and Mrs. Potts. Emma Watson as Belle 11, a bright and spirited bibliophile who rejects the monotony of provincial life and yearns for life beyond the confines of her village. 1. Daisy Duxmal as Baby Belle. 1. Dan Stevens as the Beast 12, a spoiled and arrogant prince who has been transformed into a monstrous, talking beast and forced to earn back his humanity by learning to truly love and be loved in return. 1. Stevens portrays the character through motion capture. 13. Adam Mitchell as Young Prince. 1a. Luke Evans as Gaston. 14. A narcissistic and arrogant hunter and veteran of the French Royal Army who seeks to have Belle as his trophy wife. Kevin Kline as Maurice. 15. Belle's protective widowed father who works as a music box maker and an artist. Jolien Coy as young Maurice. 1. Josh Gad as Elifu. 16. Gaston's flamboyant, illiterate, animal-loving, and long-suffering sidekick who bolsters his friend's ego but often disagrees with his decisions. Ewan McGregor as Lumiere. 17. The Beast's charismatic maitre d' who has been transformed into a candelabra. Stanley Tucci as Cadenza, a neurotic composer, who is described as a neurotic maestro, and Madame de Garde-Robe's husband who has been transformed into a harpsichord. 18. Audra McDonald as Madame de Garde-Robe, a world-renowned opera singer and Cadenza's wife who has been transformed into a wardrobe. 19. Gugum Bathara as Plumette, a castle maid and Lumiere's lover who has been transformed into a feather duster. 20. Hattie Morahan as Agathe, an enchantress responsible for cursing the prince, and who lives incognito in Belle's village as a hag. 21. Morahan also narrates the prologue. Rita Davies as Old Woman 1. The Enchantress's beggar disguise. The film was released posthumously after Davies's death. Nathan Mack as Chip, Mrs. Potts's plucky son who has been transformed into a teacup. 22. Ian McKellen as Cogsworth, the Beast's strict but loyal butler and the head of the household staff who has been transformed into a mantel clock. 23. Emma Thompson as Mrs. Potts. 15. The castle's motherly head housekeeper who has been transformed into a teapot. The film also features Thomas Patton as Chapeau, the prince's valet who has been transformed into a coat rack, and Clive Rowe as Cuisinier, the castle's head chef who has been transformed into a stove. Additionally, Sophie Reed, Raphael Cohen, and Carla Nella appear as the village lasses, a trio of women who fawn over Gaston and are jealous of Belle. Jimmy Johnston, Dean Street, and Alexis Loizon appear as Tom, Dick, and Stanley, a trio of men who are friends with Gaston and Elifu and serve as the former's henchmen. Adrian Schiller appears as Monsieur d'Arc, the sly warden of the local asylum who is bribed by Gaston to have Maurice institutionalized. 21. Gerard Horan appears as Monsieur Jean Potts, Mrs. Potts's husband and Chip's father. Hayden Gwynn appears as Clotilde, a fishmonger, and Cogsworth's wife. Michael Gibson appears as the tavern keeper, the owner and keeper of Villeneuve's local tavern. Ray Fearon appears as Père Robert, Villeneuve's local chaplain who encourages Belle to borrow the books in the chapel's meager library. Zoe Rainey appears as Belle's mother, Maurice's late wife who contracted the plague and died when Belle was an infant. Gizmo appears as Frou Frou, Maestro Cadenzas and Madame de Garderobe's pet Yorkshire Terrier who has been transformed into a footstool. Tom Turnerby appears as the king, the prince's father who, following his wife's death, raised his son to be just as arrogant and selfish as he was. Harriet Jones appears as the queen, the prince's mother who died of an illness when he was a child. Dale Branston appears as Villeneuve's resident baker. Chris Andrew Mellon appears as Nasty Headmaster, the unnamed headmaster of an all-boys school in Villeneuve that disapproves of Belle teaching a young girl how to read. Vivian Perry appears as the village lass's mother, an unnamed seamstress. Stephen Merchant was set to appear as Monsieur Toilette, a servant who was turned into a toilet, but his scenes were cut from the theatrical release of the film. 25. Production. Development. Previously, Disney had begun work on a film adaptation of the 1994 Broadway musical 2627. However, in a 2011 interview, composer Alan Menken stated the planned film version of the Beauty and the Beast stage musical was canned. 28. By April 2014, Walt Disney Pictures had already begun developing a new live-action version of Beauty and the Beast after making other live-action fantasy films such as Alice in Wonderland, Maleficent, Cinderella, and The Jungle Book. 29. 2 months later, Bill Condon signed on to direct the film from a script by Evan Spiliotopoulos. 30. Later in September of that same year, Stephen Kbosky, who directed Emma Watson in The Perks of Being a Wallflower, was hired to rewrite the script. 31. Before Condon was hired to direct the film, Disney approached him with a proposal to remake the film in a more radical way as Universal Studios had remade Snow White and the Huntsman, 2012. Condon later explained that after Frozen opened, the studio saw that there was this big international audience for an old-school musical approach. But initially, they said, "We're interested in a musical to a degree, but only half full of songs." My interest was taking that film and doing it in this new medium live action as a full-on musical movie. So I backed out for a minute, and they came back and said, no, we get it, let's pursue it that way. 32. Walt Disney Pictures President of Production Sean Bailey credited Walt Disney Studios Chairman Alan F. Horn with the decision to make the film as a musical. "We worked on this for 5 or 6 years, and for 18 months to 2 years, Beauty was a serious dramatic project, and the scripts were written to reflect that. It wasn't a musical at that time. But we just couldn't get it to click, and it was Alan Horn who championed the idea of owning the Disney of it all. We realized there was a competitive advantage in the songs. What is wrong with making adults feel like kids again?" 33. The film's ending originally featured Gaston being cursed by the Enchantress, though the idea was scrapped. 34. Casting. In January 2015, it was announced that Emma Watson had been cast as Belle, the female lead. 11. She was the first and only choice of Walt Disney Studios Chairman Alan F. Horn, who had previously run Warner Brothers, which released the 8 Harry Potter films that starred Watson as Hermione Granger. 33. Watson had previously been attached to star in Guillermo del Toro's film adaptation of the original fairy tale for Warner Brothers, 35, but the project never materialized. 11. Susan Egan, who originated the role of Belle in the 1994 Broadway musical, commented on the casting of Watson as perfect, 36, while Paige O'Hara, who voiced Belle in the original 1991 animated film, said, "I think that if I were producing that movie, Emma Watson would have been my first choice for Belle. I was just really happy they went with Emma. She's got the intelligence, she's got the humor. I think she's going to be really, really special." 37. Watson was paid $3 million upfront, with an agreement that her final take-home pay could rise as high as $15 million if the film generated gross box office income similar to the $758 million worldwide gross of Maleficent. 38. 2 months later, Luke Evans and Dan Stevens were reported to be in talks to play Gaston and the Beast respectively. 12 and Watson confirmed their casting the next day on Twitter. 39-40 Idris Elba also auditioned for the role of Gaston. 41 The rest of the principal cast, including Josh Gad, Emma Thompson, Kevin Kline, Audra McDonald, Ian McKellen, Gugum Bathara, Ewan McGregor, and Stanley Tucci were announced between March and April to play Ellie Fu, Mrs. Potts, Maurice, Madame de Garde-Robe, Cogsworth, Plumette, Lumiere, and Cadenza, respectively. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 23, 42. Filming. Principal photography began on May 18, 2015, taking place at Shepperton Studios in Surrey, England, nearby in the village of Cranleigh, and in Lacock, Wiltshire. 1543-44 The massive movie set of the fictional provincial town of Villeneuve, named after the author of the original fairy tale, Gabrielle Suzanne Barbot de Villeneuve, was inspired by the town of Conques in southern France and measured 28,787 square feet, 2,670 square meters. 45. Filming with the principal actors concluded on August 21. 46-47 6 days later, co-producer Jack Morrissey confirmed that production had officially wrapped. 48 The castle in the film was inspired by the Château de Chambord in France. 49. The Beast was portrayed with a more traditional motion capture puppeteering for the body and the physical orientation, where actor Dan Stevens was in a 40-pound gray suit on stilts for much of the film. The facial capture for the Beast was done separately in order to communicate the subtleties of the human face and capture the thought that occurs to him, which gets through to the eyes, which are the last human element in the Beast. The castle servants who are transformed into household objects were created with CGI animation. 6. One concern was that one wrong step could lead to one of Stevens's steel stilts crushing one of Watson's feet, which could have severely disrupted production. To minimize that risk, the actors spent 3 months in pre-production and rigorously rehearsed their scenes. For the film's iconic dance scene, they initially practiced waltz steps on the ground, then Stevens learned how to walk on stilts, and then he learned how to waltz on stilts. 50. Prior to the film's release, Bill Condon refilmed one certain sequence in the Days in the Sun number, due to confusion among test audiences caused by actress Harriet Jones, who looked similar to Hattie Morahan, who portrayed Agath. In the original version of the scene, it was Jones' character, the prince's mother, who sings the first verse of the song, with Rudy Goodman playing the young prince and Henry Garrett playing his father, but in the reshot version of the scene, the singing part is given to the prince, now played by Adam Mitchell. The king was also recast to Tom Turner, although Harriet Jones was still the queen, albeit with dark hair. Both Goodman and Garrett's names were mistakenly featured in the original theatrical releases credits, but was later corrected in home releases. 24. Music. Main article, Beauty and the Beast, 2017 soundtrack. When released in 1991, Beauty and the Beast marked a turning point for Walt Disney Pictures by appealing to millions of fans with its Academy Award-winning musical score by lyricist Howard Ashman and composer Alan Menken. In Bill Condon's opinion, that original score was the key reason he agreed to direct a live-action version of the film. That score had more to reveal, he says. You look at the songs and there's not a clunker in the group. In fact, Frank Rich described it as the best Broadway musical of 1991. The animated version was already darker and more modern than the previous Disney fairy tales. Take that vision, put it into a new medium, make it a radical reinvention, something not just for the stage because it's not just being literal, now other elements come into play. It's not just having real actors do it. 51. Condon initially prepared on only drawing inspiration from the original film, but he also planned to include most of the songs composed by Menken, Ashman, and Tim Rice from the Broadway musical, with the intention of making the film as a straightforward, live-action, large-budget movie musical. 52. Menken returned to score the film's music, which features songs from the original film by him and Ashman, plus new material written by him and Rice. 53 Mencken said the film would not include songs that were written for the Broadway musical and, instead, created 4 new songs. 54 However, an instrumental version of the song Home, which was written for the musical, is used during the scene where Belle first enters her room in the castle. 55. On January 19, 2017, both Disney and Celine Dion, singer of the original 1991 Beauty and the Beast duet song, with singer Peabo Bryson, confirmed that Dion would be performing one of the new original songs How Does a Moment Last Forever to play over the end titles. 56 She originally had doubts about whether or not to record the song due to the recent death of her husband and manager Renee Angelil, who had previously helped her secure the 1991 pop duet. While ultimately accepting the opportunity, she said, "The first Beauty and the Beast decision was made with my husband. Now I'm making decisions on my own. It's a little bit harder. I couldn't say yes right away, because I felt like I was kind of cheating in a way." She eventually felt compelled to record the song because of the impact Beauty and the Beast has had on her career. According to Dion, "I was at the beginning of my career, it put me on the map, it put me where I am today." Also, Josh Groban was announced to be performing the new original song Evermore 6 days later. 57, 58, 59, 60. The 2017 film features a remake of the 1991 original song recorded as a duet by Ariana Grande and John Legend. 61, 62 Grande and Legend's updated version of the title song is faithful to the original, Grammy-winning duet, performed by Celine Dion and Peabo Bryson for the 1991 Disney film. 63 Disney debuted the music video for Ariana Grande and John Legend's interpretation of the title song on Freeform Television Network on March 5, 2017, and it has since been viewed over 250 million times on the Vevo video hosting service. 64. Emma Thompson also performed the title song, which was performed by Angela Lansbury in the original 1991 animated film. 64. Marketing. Disney spent around $140 million to market the film worldwide. 65 Disney premiered the first official teaser trailer on Good Morning America in May 2016. 66 In its first 24 hours, the teaser trailer reached 91.8 million views, which was the largest number ever seen for a trailer in that amount of time. 67 This record has since been broken by Thor, Ragnarok 68 and Avengers, Infinity War. 69 The first official teaser poster was released on July 7, 2016. 71 On November 2, 2016, Entertainment Weekly debuted the first official image on the cover of their magazine, along with 9 new photos. 72 1 week later, Emma Watson and Disney debuted a new poster. 74 On November 14, 2016, the first theatrical trailer was released, again on Good Morning America. 75 This reached 127.6 million views in its first 24 hours, setting a new record for the most views in one day, beating 50 Shades Darker. 76 This record has since been broken by The Fate of the Furious. 77 A TV spot with Watson singing was shown during the 74th Golden Globe Awards. 78 Disney released the final trailer on January 30, 2017. 79. Novelization. A tie-in novelization of the film was published by Disney Publishing Worldwide on January 31, 2017. 80. Release. Theatrical. The world premiere of Beauty and the Beast took place as a Spencer House Royal World charity event in London on February 23, 2017. 81 The US premiere was held at the El Capitan Theatre in Hollywood on March 2, 2017. The stream was broadcast on YouTube. Citation needed. A sing-along version of the film released in over 1,200 US theaters nationwide on April 7, 2017. 82. The United Kingdom received the same version on April 21, 2017. 83. The film was re-released in New York City and Los Angeles for a one-week engagement starting December 1, 2017. The movie was an awards push as the 2017-18 awards season heated up. 84. On March 16, 2015, Disney announced the film would be released in 3D on March 17, 2017. 15. The first official presentation of the film took place at Disney's 3-day D23 Expo in August 2015. 85. On February 10, 2017, IMAX announced that the film would have an expanded aspect ratio of 1.90:1, revealing 26% more picture, only in IMAX theaters. 86. Home media. Beauty and the Beast was released on Blu-ray, DVD, Blu-ray 3D and Digital HD on June 6, 2017. 87. The film debuted at number 1 on the NPD Videoscan overall disc sales chart, with all other titles in the top 20, collectively, selling only 40% as many units as Beauty and the Beast. 88. The film regained the top spot on the national home video sales charts during its third week of release. 89. Overall, the film made a revenue of $85.1 million from home video sales with 4.3 million units sold, making it the second best-selling film of 2017 behind Moana. 90. Beauty and the Beast was released on 4K Blu-ray and on digital movie copy 4K Ultra HD streamable version downloadable format on March 10, 2020, concurrently along with the original animated feature film. 91. Reception. Box office. Beauty and the Beast is Emma Watson's highest-grossing film in the domestic side and second highest-grossing film overall, behind only Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 2. 92. Beauty and the Beast grossed $504 million in the United States and Canada and $759.5 million in other countries for a worldwide gross of $1.263 billion. 3. With a production budget of $254 million, it is the most expensive musical ever made. 593. In just 10 days, it became the highest-grossing live-action musical of all time, beating the 9-year-old record held by Mamma Mia. It also became the second biggest musical ever overall at the time, behind Disney's Frozen, 2013. 94. Worldwide, the film proved to be a global phenomenon, earning a total of $357 million over its 4-day opening weekend from 56 markets. Critics said the film was playing like superhero movies amongst women. It was the second biggest March global opening, behind only Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, the 13th biggest worldwide opening ever and the 7th biggest for Disney. 95. This includes $21 million from IMAX plays on 1,026 screens, a new record for an IMAX PG title. 96. It surpassed the entire lifetime total of the original film in just 6 days. 97. 98. Beauty and the Beast was the 300th digitally remastered release in IMAX company's history, which began with the re-release of Apollo 13 in 2002. Its robust global debut helped push the company past $6 billion for the first time 99 and led to analysts believing that the film had a shot of passing $1 billion worldwide from theatrical earnings. 100, 101, 102, 103. On April 12, it passed the $1 billion threshold, becoming the first film of 2017, the 14th Disney film, and the 29th film overall to pass the mark. It became the first film since Rogue One, a Star Wars story, also a Disney property, in December 2016 to make over $1 billion, and did so on its 29th day of release. 104, 105, 106. It is currently the second highest grossing film of 2017, behind Star Wars, The Last Jedi, 107. The highest grossing March release 108. The highest grossing remake of all time 109 and the 6th biggest Disney film. 110. Even after inflation adjusted, it is still ahead of the $425 million gross, $760 million in 2017 dollars, of the original film. 109. Deadline. Hollywood calculated the film's net profit as $414.7 million, accounting for production budgets, marketing, talent participations, and other costs. Box office grosses and home media revenues placed it second on their list of 2017's most valuable blockbusters. 111. United States and Canada. In the United States and Canada, Beauty and the Beast topped Fandango's pre-sales and became the fastest-selling family film in the company's history, topping the studio's own animated film Finding Dory, released the previous year. Early tracking had the film grossing around $100 million in its opening weekend, with some publications predicting it could reach $130 million. 112. 113. 114. By the time the film's release was 10 days away, analysts raised projections to as high as $150 million. 115. 116. It earned $16.3 million from Thursday previews night, marking the biggest of 2017, breaking Logan's record, the biggest ever for a Disney live-action film, breaking Maleficent's record, the second biggest ever for both a G or PG-rated film, behind the sixth Harry Potter film Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, and the third biggest ever in the month of March, behind Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice and The Hunger Games. 117. An estimated 41% of the gross came from IMAX, 3D, and premium large format screenings, which began at 6 p.m., while the rest 59% came from regular 2D shows, which began at 7 p.m. 118. The numbers were considered more impressive given that the film played during a school week. 119. On its opening day, the film made $63.8 million from 4,210 theaters across 9,200 screens, marking the third biggest in the month of March, trailing behind Batman v Superman, $81.5 million, and The Hunger Games, $67 million. 120. 121. It was also the biggest opening day ever for a film that wasn't PG-13, displacing the $58 million opening Wednesday of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Its opening day alone, which includes Thursday's previews, almost matched the entire opening weekend of previous Disney live-action films, Maleficent, $69.4 million, and Cinderella, $67.9 million. 122. Unlike all previous four Disney live-action films witnessing a hike on their second day, Saturday, Beauty and the Beast actually fell 2%, nevertheless, the dip was paltry, and the grosses are so much greater in comparison to the other titles. 99. Earning a total of $174.8 million on its opening weekend, it defied all expectations and went on to set numerous notable records. 123. This includes the biggest opening of the year as well as the biggest for the month of March and pre-summer/spring opening, beating Batman v Superman. 124. 125. The biggest start ever for a PG title, also for a family film, surpassing Finding Dory until it was later surpassed by Incredibles 2. 126. The biggest debut of all time for a female-led film, ahead of The Hunger Games, Catching Fire. 127. The biggest for a Disney live-action adaptation, ahead of Alice in Wonderland. 127. And the biggest live-action musical and musical debuts ever, supplanting Pitch Perfect 2 and The Lorax, respectively. Furthermore, it is also Watson's highest opening, beating Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 2. Same with Emma Thompson, director Bill Condon's biggest debut ever ahead of The Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn, Part 2 and the biggest outside of summer, save for Star Wars, The Force Awakens, not accounting for inflation. 123. It became the 43rd film to debut with over $100 million and the 15th film to open above $150 million. Its three-day opening alone surpassed the entire original North American run of the first film, $146 million, before the 3D re-release, instantly becoming the second biggest film of the year, behind Logan, $184 million, and the second highest grossing musical, behind Grease's $188 million cumulative gross in 1978. 128 out of the total ticket sales, 70% came from 2D showings, thus signifying that people who don't go to theaters frequently came out in bulk to watch the film. About 26% of the remaining tickets were for 3D. IMAX accounted for 7%, $12.5 million, of the total weekend's gross, setting a new record for a PG title, ahead of Alice in Wonderland, $12.1 million, while PLF repped 11% of the box office. 99 The film's opening day demographic, around 70% were female, dropping to 60% through the weekend. 127 According polling service Post-Track, about 84% of American parents who saw the film on its opening day said they would definitely recommend it for families. 130 The film's opening was credited to positive word of mouth from audiences, good reviews from critics, effective marketing which sold the title not just as a family film but also as a romantic drama, the cast's star power, namely Emma Watson, lack of competition, being the first family film since the Lego Batman movie a month earlier, nostalgia, and the success and ubiquity of the first film and Disney's brand. 130 On Monday, its fourth day of release, the film fell precipitously by 72%, earning $13.5 million. The steep fall was due to a limited marketplace where only 11% K-12 and 15% colleges were off per ComScore. Nevertheless, it is the second biggest March Monday, behind Batman v Superman, $15 million. 131 This was followed by the biggest March and pre-summer Tuesday with $17.8 million, a 32% increase from its previous day. The same day, the film passed $200 million in ticket sales. 132 It earned $228.6 million in the first week of release, the sixth biggest seven-day gross of all time. 133 In its second weekend, the film continued to maintain the top positioning and fell gradually by 48%, earning another $90.4 million to register the fourth biggest second weekend of all time, and the third biggest for Disney. 134 In terms of percentage drop, its 48% decline is the third smallest drop for any film opening above $125 million, behind Finding Dory and The Force Awakens. 94 The hold was notable considering how the film was able to fend off three new wide releases, Power Rangers, Life, Chips, and Wilson. 135 As a result, it passed the $300 million threshold, becoming the first film of 2017 to pass said mark. 136 The film grossed $45.4 million in its third weekend, finally being overtaken for the top spot by newcomer The Boss Baby, $50.2 million. 137 On April 4, 2017, its 19th day of release, it passed the $400 million threshold, becoming the first film of 2017 to do so. 138 By its fourth weekend, the film was playing in 3,969 cinemas, a fall of 241 theaters from its previous weekend. Of those, approximately 1,200 cinemas were sing-along versions. It earned $26.3 million, 48%, and retained second place. By comparison, previous Disney films Moana, 8%, and Frozen, 2%, both witnessed mild percentage declines the weekend their sing-alone versions were released. 139 Its seventh weekend of release was in contemporaneous with another Emma Watson starring new film The Circle. 140 That weekend, The Circle was number 4, while Beauty and the Beast was at number 6. 141 By May 28, the film had earned over $500 million in ticket sales, becoming the first film of 2017, until it was later surpassed by The Last Jedi, 142-143, the third female-led film, after The Force Awakens and Rogue One, followed by Wonder Woman and The Last Jedi, and the 8th overall film in cinematic history to pass the mark. 144, 145, 146, 147. It has already become the biggest March release, dethroning The Hunger Games, 2012, 148, the biggest musical film, both animated and live action, 149, as well as the second biggest film of 2017 after The Last Jedi. 150 in July 2020, due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic closing most theaters and limiting new releases, Beauty and the Beast returned to 527 theaters, mostly drive-ins, and grossed $467,000. 151. Other territories. Outside the US and Canada, the film began playing on Thursday, March 16, 2017. Through Sunday, March 19, it had a total international opening of $182.3 million from 55 markets, 44 of which were major territories, far exceeding initial estimations of $100 million, and opened at number 1 in virtually all markets except Vietnam, Turkey, and India. Its launch is the second biggest for the month of March, behind Batman v Superman, $256.5 million. In IMAX, it recorded the biggest debut for a PG-rated title, although it carried varying certificate amongst different markets, with $8.5 million from 649 screens, the second biggest for a PG title behind The Jungle Book. 152 in its second weekend, it fell just by 35%, earning another $120.6 million and maintaining its first position hold. It added major markets like France and Australia. 153 It topped the international box office for 3 consecutive weekends, 154 before finally being dethroned by Ghost in the Shell and The Boss Baby in its 4th weekend. Despite the fall, the film helped Disney push past the $1 billion threshold internationally for the first time in 2017. 106 155. It scored the biggest opening day of the year in Hong Kong and the Philippines, the biggest March Thursday in Italy, $1 million, also the biggest Disney Thursday debut, the biggest March opening day in Austria, and the second biggest in Germany, $1.1 million, Disney's biggest March in Denmark, the biggest Disney live-action debut in China, $12.6 million, the UK, $6.2 million, Mexico, $2.4 million, and Brazil, $1.8 million, and the third biggest in South Korea with $1.2 million, behind only Pirates of the Caribbean, at World's End, and Pirates of the Caribbean, on Stranger Tides. 156 157 in terms of opening weekend, the largest debut came from China, $44.8 million, followed by the UK, $24.3 million, Korea, $11.8 million, Mexico, $11.8 million, Australia, $11.1 million, Brazil, $11 million, Germany, $10.7 million, France, $8.4 million, Italy, $7.6 million, Philippines, $6.3 million, Russia, $6 million, and Spain, $5.8 million. 152 153. In the United Kingdom and Ireland, the film recorded the biggest opening ever for a PG-rated film, the biggest Disney live-action opening of all time, the biggest March opening weekend, the biggest opening for a musical, ahead of 2012's Les Miserables, the number 1 opening of 2017 to date, and the 5th biggest ever overall with £19.7 million, $24.5 million, from 639 theaters, and almost twice that of The Jungle Book, £9.9 million. 158 This included the second biggest Saturday ever, £7.9 million, only behind Star Wars, The Force Awakens. 159. It witnessed a decline in its second weekend, earning £12.33 million, $15.4 million. Though the film was falling at a faster rate than The Jungle Book, it had already surpassed the said film, and its second weekend is the third biggest ever, behind the two James Bond films Skyfall, 2012, and Spectre. 153. 160. In India, the film managed to take an occupancy of 15% on its opening day. 161. 162. 163. It earned around 1 Indian rupee and 50 cents crore, $180,000 net on its opening day from an estimated 600 screens, which is more than the 3 Indian releases Machine, Trapped, and A Gaya Hero combined. 164. Disney reported a total of 9.26 Indian rupees crore, $1.1 million gross for its opening weekend there. It was ahead of all new releases and second overall behind Badrinath Ki Dulhania, and its Indian gross was around 17.63 Indian rupees crore, $2.1 million. 165. 166. 167. In Russia, despite receiving a restrictive 16 rating, the film managed to deliver a very successful opening with $6 million. 168. In China, expectations were high for the film. The release date was announced on January 24, giving Disney and local distributor China Film Group Corporation ample time, around 2 months, to market the film nationwide. The release date was strategically chosen to coincide with White Day. Preliminary reports suggested that it could open to $40 to $60 million in its opening weekend. Largely driven by young women, its opening day pre-sales outpaced that of The Jungle Book. 169. The original film was, however, never widely popular in the country. 170. Although China has occasionally blocked gay-themed content from streaming video services, in this case, Chinese censors decided to leave the gay scene intact. According to local box office tracker Ant Group, the film grossed an estimated $12.1 million on its opening day, Friday, representing 70% of the total receipts. Including previews, it made a total of $14.5 million from 100,000 screenings, which is 43% of all screenings in the country. 171. It climbed to $18.5 million on Saturday, 102,700 showings, for a 3-day total of $42.6 million, securing 60% of the total marketplace. Disney, on the other hand, reported a different figure of $44.8 million. 172. 173. Either way, it recorded the second biggest opening for a Disney live-action film. 170, with $3.4 million coming from 386 IMAX screens. 152. Japan. A huge Disney market served as the film's final market and opened there on April 21. 153. It debuted with a better-than-expected $12.5 million on its opening weekend, helping the film push past the $1.1 billion threshold. An estimated $1.1 million came from IMAX screenings, the fourth biggest ever in the country. 174. 175. The 2-day gross was $9.7 million, outstripping Frozen's previous record of $9.5 million. 176. Due to positive reviews, good word of mouth, and benefiting from the Golden Week, the film saw a 9% increase on its second weekend. The hold was strong enough to fend off newcomer The Fate of the Furious from securing the top spot. The total there is now over $98 million after 7 weekends: 177, 178, 179, and is the biggest film release of the year and, overall, the 11th biggest of all time. 180. It topped the box office there for 8 consecutive weekends. 181. 182. The only markets where the film did not top the weekend charts were Vietnam, behind Kong, Skull Island, Turkey, with 2 local films and Logan ahead, and India, where Badrinath Ki Dulhania retained number 1. 152. It topped the box office for 4 straight weekends in Germany, Korea, Austria, Finland, Poland, Portugal, Brazil, Venezuela, Bolivia, Switzerland, and the UK, exclusive of previews. 155. 183. In the Philippines, it emerged as the most successful commercial film of all time, both local and foreign, with over $13.5 million. 184. In just 5 weeks, the film became one of the top 10 highest-grossing film of all time in the United Kingdom and Ireland, ahead of all but one Harry Potter film, Deathly Hallows, Part 2, and all 3 The Lord of the Rings films, which also starred Ian McKellen. 185. It is currently the 8th biggest grosser with £70.1 million, $90 million, overtaking Mamma Mia, to become the biggest musical production ever there. 174. 186. The biggest international earning markets following the UK are Japan, $108 million, China, $85.8 million, Brazil, $41.5 million, Korea, $37.5 million, and Australia, $35 million. 181. In Europe alone, the cumulative total is $267 million, which led it to become the second highest grossing film in the past year, behind Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. 174. 177. 187. Critical response. On Rotten Tomatoes, a review aggregator, the film has an approval rating of 71% based on 384 reviews and an average rating of 6.7/10. The website's critical consensus reads, with an enchanting cast, beautifully crafted songs, and a painterly eye for detail, beauty, and the Beast offers a faithful yet fresh retelling that honors its beloved source material. 10. On Metacritic, the film has a score of 65 out of 100 based on 47 critics, indicating generally favorable reviews. 188. In CinemaScore polls, audiences gave the film an average grade of A on an A+ to F scale. 189. 190. Leslie Fulperin of The Hollywood Reporter wrote, "It's a Michelin triple-starred masterclass in patisserie skills that transforms the cinematic equivalent of a sugar rush into a kind of crystal meth-like narcotic high that lasts about 2 hours." Fulperin also praised the performances of Watson and Klein as well the special effects, costume designs, and the sets, while commending the inclusion of Gad's character of El Ifu as the first LGBT character in Disney. 191. Owen Gleiberman of Variety, in his positive review of the film, wrote, "It's a lovingly crafted movie, and in many ways a good one, but before that it's an enraptured piece of old as new nostalgia." Gleiberman compared Stevens' portrayal of the Beast to a royal version of the titular character in The Elephant Man and the 1946 version of the Beast in Jean Cocteau's original adaptation. 192. A.O. Scott of the New York Times praised the performance of Stevens, and wrote, "It looks good, moves gracefully and leaves a clean and invigorating aftertaste. I almost didn't recognize the flavor, I think the name for it is joy." 193. However, the Washington Post's Ann Hornaday gave Watson's performance a mixed review, describing it as alert and solemn while deeming her singing abilities serviceable enough to get the job done. 194. Richard Roper of the Chicago Sun-Times awarded the film 3.5 out of 5 and lauded the performances of Watson and Thompson, which he drew a comparison to Paige O'Hara's and Angela Lansbury's performances in the 1991 animated version while appreciating the performances of the other cast. He also commented on the advantage of its using both motion capture and CGI technology, writing, "Almost overwhelmingly lavish, beautifully staged and performed with exquisite timing and grace by the outstanding cast." 195. Mike Ryan of Uproxx praised the cast, production design, and the new songs while noting the film doesn't try anything different, saying, "There's certainly nothing that new about this version of Beauty and the Beast, well, except it isn't a cartoon anymore, but it's a good recreation of a classic animated film that should leave most diehards satisfied." 196. In her A review, Nancy Chernin of the Dallas Morning News praised the film's emotional and thematic depth, remarking, "There's an emotional authenticity in director Bill Condon's live-action Beauty and the Beast film that helps you rediscover Disney's beloved 1991 animated film and 1994 stage show in fresh, stirring ways." 197. James Berardinelli of Real Views described the 2017 version as enthralling. 198. Brian Truitt of USA Today commended the performances of Evans, Gad, McGregor, and Thompson alongside Condon's affinity with musicals, the production design, visual effects featured in some of the song numbers including new songs made by the composers Alan Menken and Tim Rice, particularly Evermore, which he described the new song with the potential for an Academy Award for Best Original Song. 199. Peter Traverse of Rolling Stone rated the film 3 out of 4, deeming it an exhilarating gift, while he remarked that Beauty and the Beast does justice to Disney's animated classic, even if some of the magic is missing in action. 200. Stephanie Zacharek of Time magazine gave a positive review with a description as wild, vivid, and crazy beautiful as she wrote, "Nearly everything about Beauty and the Beast is larger than life, to the point that watching it can be a little overwhelming." And added that it's loaded with feeling, almost like a brash interpretive dance expressing the passion and elation little girls, and some boys, too, must have felt upon seeing the earlier version. 201. The San Francisco Chronicle's Mick LaSalle struck an affirmative tone, calling it one of the joys of 2017, stating that Beauty and the Beast creates an air of enchantment from its first moments, one that lingers and builds and takes on qualities of warmth and generosity as it goes along, while referring the film as beautiful, and also praised the film for its emotional and psychological tone as well as Stevens' motion capture performance. 202. Tim Roby of the Daily Telegraph gave the film 4 out of 5 and wrote that it dazzles on this chocolate box of a picture that feels almost greedy, yet to make this film work, down to a sugar rush finale to grasp the nettle and make an out-and-out, bells and whistles musical, while he praised the performances of Watson, McKellen, Thompson, McGregor, Evans, and Gad. 203. Several critics regarded the film as inferior to its 1991 animated predecessor. David Sims of The Atlantic wrote that the 2017 film feels particularly egregious, in part, because it's so slavishly devoted to the original. Every time it falls short of its predecessor, which is quite often, it's hard not to notice. 204. Michael Phillips of the Chicago Tribune said that the 2017 film takes our knowledge and our interest in the material for granted. It zips from one number to another, throwing a ton of frenetically edited eye candy at the screen, charmlessly. Phillips wrote that the film featured some less conspicuously talented performers, Watson, primarily, who are stuck doing karaoke, or motion capture work of middling quality, though he praised Klein's performance as the best, sweetest thing in the movie. He brings a sense of calm, droll authority. 205. Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian wrote that the film was lit in that fascinatingly artificial honey glow light, and it runs smoothly on rails, the kind of rails that bring in and out the stage sets for the lucrative Broadway touring version. In the same newspaper, Wendy Ide criticized the film as ornate to the point of desperation in its attempt to emulate the animated film. 206. 207. Chris Nashawati of Entertainment Weekly gave the film a B, writing that the new songs were not transporting. He felt the film needed more life and depth. 208. Dana Schwartz of the New York Observer felt that some of the characters, such as Gaston and the Beast, had been watered down from the 1991 film, and that the additional backstory elements failed to advance the plot or theme in any meaningful way while adding considerable bloat. Schwartz considered the singing of the cast to be adequate but felt that their voices should have been dubbed over, especially for the complex songs. 209. Robert W. Butler of the Charlotte Observer called it big, well-designed, tuneful, and finally romantic, but said it was not as good as the original. 210. Chris Hun-Nizet of the Daily Mirror called the film irresistible and said, "There is excellence everywhere, from the superb cast, to sumptuous costumes and detailed design. 211. In a 2018 interview with The Hollywood Reporter's historical podcast, It Happened in Hollywood, Linda Wolverton, who wrote the 1991 animated film, revealed that she was not totally thrilled with the remake. She said, "I didn't think it was exactly true to the mythology of the storytelling, and I'm not happy that I don't get to participate." Who would be? Wolverton also questioned the change that saw the Beast come and go from his castle via a magic mirror. She said the castle is supposed to be impenetrable. After that, the mythology didn't work for me. Emma Charlotte Dwyer Watson, born April 15, 1990, is an English actress. Known for her roles in both blockbusters and independent films, she has received a selection of accolades, including a Young Artist Award and 3 MTV Movie Awards. Watson has been ranked among the world's highest paid actresses by Forbes and Vanity Fair, and was named one of the 100 most influential people in the world by Time magazine in 2015. 123 Watson was also listed by Forbes as an honoree on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list in 2015 and 2016. 4. Watson attended the Dragon School and trained in acting at the Oxford branch of Stagecoach Theatre Arts. As a child, she rose to stardom after landing her first professional acting role as Hermione Granger in the Harry Potter film series, having previously acted only in school plays. Watson made her first major foray beyond the Potter franchise starring in Ballet Shoes, 2007, and she lent her voice to The Tale of Desperos, 2008. After the final Harry Potter film, she took on a supporting role in My Week with Marilyn, 2011, before starring as Sam, a flirtatious, free-spirited student in The Perks of Being a Wallflower, 2012, to critical success. Further acclaim came from portraying Alexis Nyers in Sofia Coppola's The Bling Ring, 2013, and the titular character's adoptive daughter in Darren Aronofsky's biblical epic Noah, 2014. That same year, Watson was honored by the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, winning British Artist of the Year. She also starred as Belle in the live-action musical romantic fantasy Beauty and the Beast, 2017, and as Meg March in Greta Gerwig's coming-of-age drama Little Women, 2019. From 2011 to 2014, Watson split her time between working on films and continuing her education, graduating from Brown University with a bachelor's degree in English literature in May 2014. That year, she was appointed a UN Women Goodwill Ambassador and helped launch the UN Women campaign He for She, which advocates for gender equality. In 2018, she helped launch Time's Up UK as a founding member. Watson was appointed to a G7 advisory body for women's rights in 2019, consulting with leaders on foreign policy. Her modeling work has included campaigns for Burberry and Lancome. She also lent her name to a clothing line for the sustainable brand People Tree. From 2020 to 2023, she sat on the board of directors of Kering, a luxury brand group, in her capacity as an advocate for sustainable fashion. Early life and education. Emma Charlotte Dwyer Watson V was born on April 15, 1990 in Paris, to English lawyers Jacqueline Louisby and Chris Watson. 6789 Watson lived in Maisons Laffitte near Paris until age 5. Her parents divorced when she was 5, and Watson moved to England to live with her mother in Oxfordshire while spending weekends at her father's house in London. 71011 Watson has said she speaks some French, though not as well as she used to. 12 After moving to Oxford with her mother and brother, she attended the Dragon School, remaining there until 2003. 7 From age 6, she wanted to become an actress. 13 And trained at the Oxford branch of Stagecoach Theatre Arts, a part-time theatre school where she studied singing, dancing, and acting. 14. By age 10, Watson had performed in Stagecoach productions and school plays including Arthur, The Young Years and The Happy Prince. 15 But she had never acted professionally prior to the Harry Potter series. After the Dragon School, Watson moved on to Headington School, Oxford. 7. While on film sets, she and her castmates were tutored for up to 5 hours a day. 16. In June 2006, she took GCSE school examinations in 10 subjects, achieving 8A** and 2A grades. In May 2007, she took as levels in English, Geography, Art, and History of Art. The following year, she dropped History of Art to pursue the 3A levels, receiving an A grade in each subject. 7. 17-18. Watson took a gap year after finishing secondary school. 19. To film Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Parts 1 and 2 beginning in February 2009. 20. But asserted that she intended to continue her studies. 21. And later confirmed she had chosen Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. 22. In March 2011, after 18 months at the university, Watson announced she was deferring her course for a semester or two. 23. Though she attended Worcester College, Oxford during the 2011-12 academic year as part of the visiting student program. 24. 25. In a 2014 interview on the Ellen DeGeneres Show, Watson said just before graduation that it took 5 years to finish her degree instead of 4 because, owing to her acting work, she ended up taking 2 full semesters off. 26. On May 25, 2014, she graduated from Brown University with a Bachelor of Arts degree in English Literature. 27. In 2023, she began a course of Master of Studies in Creative Writing at the University of Oxford, where she matriculated at Lady Margaret Hall. 28. Acting career. 1999 to 2009, Harry Potter and worldwide recognition. In 1999, casting began for Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, the film adaptation of British author J.K. Rowling's best-selling novel. 29. Casting agents found Watson through her Oxford theatre teacher. She had acted in school plays, but had no film acting experience. Her first audition took place when she was 9 years old. Although Watson had to audition a total of 8 times before earning the role, Rowling supported her casting after her first screen test. 31. Prior to casting Watson, the producers considered Hattie Jones for the role. 33. Watson at the premiere of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire in November 2005. The release of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone in 2001 was Watson's debut screen performance. The film broke records for opening day sales and opening weekend takings and was the highest-grossing film of 2001. 34. 35. Critics singled out Watson for particular acclaim. The Daily Telegraph called her performance admirable. 36. And IGN said she stole the show. 37. Watson was nominated for 5 awards for her performance in Philosopher's Stone, winning the Young Artist Award for Leading Young Actress. 38. She was chosen as one of Entertainment Weekly's breakout performers of 2001. 32. A year later, Watson reprised her role as Hermione in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the second installment of the series. Reviewers praised the lead actor's performances. The Los Angeles Times said Watson and her co-stars had matured between films. 39. While the Times criticized director Chris Columbus for underemploying Watson's hugely popular character. 40. Watson received an Otto Award from the German magazine Bravo for her performance. 41. In 2004, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban was released. Watson was appreciative of the more assertive role Hermione played, calling her charismatic and a fantastic role to play. 42. Critics lauded Watson's performance. A.O. Scott of the New York Times remarked, "Luckily Mr. Radcliffe's blandness is offset by Ms. Watson's spiky impatience. Harry may show off his expanding wizardly skills, but Hermione earns the loudest applause with a decidedly unmagical punch to Draco Malfoy's deserving nose." 43. Although Prisoner of Azkaban proved to be the lowest-grossing Harry Potter film in the entire series, Watson's performance won her 2 Otto Awards and the Child Performance of the Year award from Total Film. 44-45. With Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, 2005, both Watson and the Harry Potter film series reached new milestones. The film set records for a Harry Potter opening weekend and opening weekend in the UK. Critics praised the increasing maturity of Watson and her teenage co-stars. The New York Times called her performance touchingly earnest, 46, and Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian wrote that Watson's gutsy, confident performance nicely shows that inside and outside the world of magic there is a growing discrepancy between a teenage girl's status and her accelerating emotional and intellectual development. 47. For Watson, much of the film's humor sprang from the tension among the three lead characters as they matured. She said, "I loved all the arguing. I think it's much more realistic that they would argue and that there would be problems." 48. Nominated for 3 awards for Goblet of Fire, Watson won a Bronze Otto Award. 49. Watson almost quit the franchise after Goblet of Fire, saying, "I think I was scared. I don't know if you ever felt like it got to a tipping point where you were like, this is kind of forever now." 51. In 2006, Watson played Hermione in The Queen's Handbag, a special mini-episode of Harry Potter in celebration of Queen Elizabeth II's 80th birthday. 52. The fifth film in the Harry Potter series, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, was released in 2007. A huge financial success, the film set a record worldwide opening weekend gross of $332.7 million. 53. Watson won the inaugural National Movie Award for Best Female Performance. 54. As the fame of the actress and the series continued to rise, Watson and her Harry Potter co-stars Daniel Radcliffe and Rupert Grint left imprints of their hands, feet, and wands in front of Grauman's Chinese Theatre in Hollywood on July 9, 2007. 55. That month, Watson's work on the Harry Potter series was said to have earned her more than £10 million, and she acknowledged she would never have to work for money again. 56. Watson with Daniel Radcliffe, left, and Rupert Grint at the London premiere of Deathly Hallows, Part 2 in July 2011. Watson with co-stars Daniel Radcliffe, left, and Rupert Grint, right, at the premiere of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 2 in July 2011. Prior to the release of Order of the Phoenix, the future of the Harry Potter series was in jeopardy, as all 3 lead actors were hesitant to sign on to continue their roles for the final installments. 57. Watson was considerably more ambivalent than her co-stars during renegotiations. 58. She explained that the decision was significant, as the films represented a further 4-year commitment to the role, but eventually conceded that she could never let the role of Hermione go. 59. Signing for the role on March 23, 2007. 60. Watson's first non-Potter role was the 2007 BBC film Ballet Shoes, a television adaptation of the 1936 novel of the same name by Noel Streatfeild, which starred Emilia Fox, Victoria Wood, and Richard Griffiths. 61. 62. The film's director, Sandra Goldbacher, commented that Watson was perfect for the starring role of aspiring actress Pauline Fossil. "She has a piercing, delicate aura that makes you want to gaze and gaze at her." 63. Ballet Shoes was broadcast in the UK on Boxing Day to 5.7 million viewers, to mixed reviews. 64. 65. 66. The following year, she voiced the character Princess P in the animation The Tale of Desperos, a children's comedy, based on the 2003 novel of the same name, by Kate DiCamillo, starring Matthew Broderick, with Harry Potter co-star Robbie Coltrane also starring in the film. 67. The Tale of Desperos was released in December 2008 and grossed $87 million worldwide. 68. Principal photography for the 6th Harry Potter film began in late 2007, with Watson's part being filmed from December 18 to May 17, 2008. 69. 70. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince premiered on 15 July 2009. 71. Having been delayed from November 2008. 72. With the lead actors in their late teens, critics were increasingly willing to review them on the same level as the rest of the franchise's all-star cast, which the Los Angeles Times described as a comprehensive guide to contemporary UK acting. 73 The Washington Post felt Watson had given her most charming performance to date, 74 While the Daily Telegraph described the lead actors as newly liberated and energized, eager to give all they have to what's left of the series. 75. Watson's filming for the final installment, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, began on 18 February 2009, 76 and ended on June 12, 2010. 77 For financial and scripting reasons, the original book was divided into 2 films which were shot consecutively. 78 20 Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 1 was released in November 2010 while the second film was released in July 2011. 79 Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 2 became a commercial and critical success. The highest grossing film in the franchise, it grossed more than $1.3 billion worldwide and proved to be Watson's most commercially successful film to date. 80. 2010 to 2016, independent films and mainstream work. Watson appeared in a music video for One Night Only, after meeting lead singer George Craig at the 2010 winter/summer Burberry advertising campaign. The video, Say You Don't Want It, was screened on Channel 4 on June 26, 2010 and released on August 16. 81 In her first post-Harry Potter film, Watson appeared in My Week with Marilyn, 2011, as Lucy, a wardrobe assistant who briefly dates protagonist Colin Clark, portrayed by Eddie Redmayne. 82-83. Watson attending the 2013 Cannes Film Festival. In May 2010, Watson was reported to be in talks to star in Stephen Chbosky's The Perks of Being a Wallflower 84 based on the 1999 novel of the same name. Filming began in summer of 2011, and the film was released in September 2012. 85 Watson starred opposite Logan Lerman as Sam, a high school senior who befriends a fellow student called Charlie Lerman, and helps him through his freshman year. The film opened to favorable reviews. David Sexton of the Evening Standard opined that Watson's performance was plausible and touching. 86 While the Atlantic reviewer thought that Watson sheds the memory of a decade playing Hermione in the Harry Potter series with an about-face as a flirtatious but insecure free spirit. 87. Watson joined the cast of the satirical crime film The Bling Ring on 29 February 2012. 88 The Sofia Coppola-directed film is based on the real-life Bling Ring robberies, with Watson playing a fictionalized version of Alexis Nyers, a television personality who was one of 7 teenagers involved in the robberies. The film was released in 2013. While the film mostly received mixed reviews, critics gave almost unanimous praise for Watson's performance. Adam White of The Independent later stated that she proved remarkable. Watson oozes casual disdain. Her sticky American vocal fry is clipped and monotone, as if she swallowed a Kardashian for breakfast. 89. Watson also had a supporting role in the apocalyptic comedy This Is the End, 2013, in which she, Seth Rogen, James Franco and many others played exaggerated versions of themselves. 90 And Watson memorably dropped the F-bomb. 91 She said she could not pass up the opportunity to make her first comedy and work with some of the best comedians in the world right now. 92. In June 2012, Watson was confirmed for the role as Isla, Shem's wife, in Darren Aronofsky's Noah, which began filming the following month, and was released in March 2014. 93 Watson referred to the role as physically very demanding given the usage of special effects and did extensive research on childbirth to effectively portray a scene in the film. 94 The film, a box office success, received mixed reviews for its direction and casting. Vanity Fair wrote that Watson anchors the film's rawest emotional scenes. Sitting on an Icelandic beach with Russell Crowe, her hair wild and eyes burning, Watson is quiet but ferocious. 95. In March 2013, it was reported that Watson was in negotiations to star as the title character in Kenneth Branagh's live-action Disney adaptation of Cinderella. 96 Watson was offered the role, but turned it down because she did not connect with the character. 97-98 The role ultimately went to Lily James. 99. Watson performed the background vocals in the second chorus of the song Pantomime by singer Ben Hammersley, alongside Oliver Arnolds. The song was released on January 20, 2014. 100. Watson joined Judi Dench, Robert Downey Jr., Mike Leigh, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and Mark Ruffalo as recipients of the 2014 Britannia Awards, presented on October 30 in Los Angeles. Watson was awarded British Artist of the Year, and she dedicated the prize to Millie, her pet hamster who died as Watson was filming Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. 101 Watson starred in two 2015 releases, the thrillers Colonia, opposite Daniel Bruhl and Michael Nyqvist. 102 and Regression by Alejandro Amenabar, alongside Ethan Hawke and her Harry Potter co-star David Thewlis. 103 104 Both of these films received generally negative reviews. 105 106 The Daily Telegraph critic blamed Regression's script for her pure dramatic cardboard role. 107 She also appeared in an episode of BBC's The Vicar of Derby, in which she played Reverend Iris. 108 In February 2016, Watson announced she was taking a year-long break from acting. She planned to spend the time on her personal development and her women's rights work. 109. 2017, present, recent career and hiatus. Watson promoting The Circle in 2017. Watson starred as Belle in the 2017 live-action Disney adaptation of Beauty and the Beast directed by Bill Condon, and starring opposite Dan Stevens as the Beast. 110 She was given autonomy within Belle's portrayal. She recharacterized her as an assistant to her inventor father and incorporated bloomers and boots into her wardrobe. 111 The film grossed over $1.2 billion at the worldwide box office and emerged as the second highest grossing film of 2017 and the 17th highest grossing film of all time. 112 Her reported fee was $3 million upfront with profit participation, bringing her salary up to $15 million. 113 The film garnered positive reviews. Richard Roper of the Chicago Sun-Times thought her performance was all pluck and spunk and sass and smarts and fierce independence as Belle. 112 114 115 Watson later said, "When I finished the film, it kind of felt like I had made that transition into being a woman on screen." 111. In the same year, she starred opposite Tom Hanks in the film adaptation of Dave Eggers' novel The Circle as May Holland, who begins working at a powerful tech corporation and enters a perilous situation concerning surveillance and freedom. 116 The film received negative reviews but was a moderate box office success. 117 In 2019, Watson starred as Meg March in Greta Gerwig's adaptation of Louisa May Alcott's novel Little Women, co-starring with Saoirse Ronan, Florence Pugh, Laura Dern, Timothy Chalamet, and Meryl Streep. 118 On the premise, Watson has stated, "I think Little Women was good literary device to explain that there's not one way to be a feminist. Meg's way of being a feminist is making the choice, because that's really, for me anyway, what feminism is about. Her choice is that she wants to be a full-time mother and wife." 119. Forbes stated that Watson has perhaps the most challenging role, as the proverbial straight woman of the sisters who is put on the defensive when her dreams end up being the most conventional of the lot. 120. The film was critically acclaimed and grossed over $218 million against its $40 million budget. 121 122 123 In 2020, Watson discussed her future career plans, stating, "Having been so public in making films and being so active on social media in my activism, I am curious to embrace a role where I work to amplify more voices, to continue to learn from those with different experiences," adding that her work would include fewer red carpets and more conference meetings. 124. In 2021, various reports surfaced stating that Watson was engaged or retiring. 125 126 Watson and her representatives refuted these reports. She later labeled the speculation as clickbait and attributed her relative public absence to continued social distancing during the COVID-19 pandemic. 127 In 2022, Watson reunited with multiple cast members of the Harry Potter film series for an HBO Max special titled Harry Potter 20th Anniversary, Return to Hogwarts. 128 The following year, Watson revealed in an interview with the Financial Times that a reason why she had not acted in almost 5 years was because she wasn't very happy with the profession and that she felt a bit caged. However, she went on to say that she would absolutely return to acting while also saying, "But I'm happy to sit and wait for the next right thing. I love what I do. It's finding a way to do it where I don't have to fracture myself into different faces and people. And I just don't want to switch into robot mode anymore." 129. Fashion career. In 2005, Watson began her modeling career with a photo shoot for Teen Vogue, which made her the youngest person to cover the magazine. 3 years later, the British press reported that Watson was to replace Keira Knightley as the face of Chanel, but this was denied by both parties. 130 In June 2009, following several months of rumors, Watson confirmed she would be partnering with Burberry as the face of their autumn/winter 2009 campaign, for which she received an estimated six-figure fee. 131 132 She also appeared in Burberry's 2010 spring/summer campaign alongside her brother Alex, musicians George Craig and Matt Gilmore, and model Max Hurd. 133 In February 2011, Watson was awarded the Style Icon Award from British Elle by Dame Vivienne Westwood. 134 Watson continued her involvement in fashion advertising when she announced she had been chosen as the face of Lancome in March 2011. 135. In September 2009, Watson announced her involvement with Petal, a fair trade fashion brand. 136 Watson worked as a creative advisor for the company to create a spring line of clothing, which was released in February 2010. 136 137 The range featured styles inspired by southern France and London. 137 138 The collection, described by the Times as very clever despite their quiet hope that she would become tangled at the first hemp-woven hurdle. 139 was widely publicized in magazines such as Teen Vogue, 140 Cosmopolitan, and People. Watson, who was not paid for the collaboration. 141 admitted that competition for the range was minimal. 139 but argued that fashion is a great way to empower people and give them skills. Rather than give cash to charity, you can help people by buying the clothes they make and supporting things they take pride in, adding, "I think young people like me are becoming increasingly aware of the humanitarian issues surrounding fast fashion and want to make good choices, but there aren't many options out there." 139. Watson continued her involvement with Petal, resulting in the release of a 2010 autumn/winter collection. 142. Watson's wax figure at Madame Tussauds wearing an Elie Saab design. In 2013, Madame Tussauds in London unveiled a wax statue of Watson wearing an Elie Saab haute couture design donated to the museum by the designer. A spokesperson for the museum stated, "Watson is one of the most requested personalities by our guests. She's a true English rose known and loved by millions of film and fashion fans around the world." 143 144 Watson was awarded Best British Style at the 2014 British Fashion Awards. 145 The competition included David Beckham, Amal Clooney, Kate Moss, and Keira Knightley. 145. Watson has been described as an early adopter of sustainable fashion and is noted for dressing ethically on the red carpet. 146 147 She wore a Calvin Klein gown to the 2016 Met Gala made out of recycled plastic bottles. 148 Watson has supported Good on You, an app that acts as a directory for the sustainability level of fashion brands. 149 In 2017, she began updating an Instagram account entitled The Press Tour, detailing the ethical brands she wore during the press tours for films such as Beauty and the Beast and The Circle. Watson guest edited the March 2018 issue of Vogue Australia focusing on fashion sustainability, and was photographed by Peter Lindbergh for the magazine. 151 In January 2020, she partnered with consignment website ThreadUp to launch a fashion footprint calculator, which allows website visitors to calculate the carbon impact of their wardrobes and ways to reduce it. 152. In June 2020, Watson was appointed the youngest member of the board of directors of Kering, the owner of various fashion brands such as Gucci and Yves Saint Laurent. Watson will chair Kering's Sustainability Committee. Kering chairman François-Henri Pinault praised the new board members' knowledge and competences, and the multiplicity of their backgrounds and perspectives. 153 Watson stated she hoped to influence decisions that will impact future generations and the world that we leave them, and was extremely excited to collaborate with the Kering Foundation as part of their women's rights work and looked forward to making a difference behind the scenes. 124 She served in this capacity until 2023. 154. In August 2022, Watson became the face of Prada Beauty's new fragrance Paradox. She starred in, directed, wrote and narrated the short film for the fragrance's promotional campaign. 155 In January 2024, Watson became the face of Prada's Renylon collection, the sustainable product line of the brand. 156 157. Activism and advocacy. UN Women Goodwill Ambassadorship and Feminism. It is time that we all perceive gender on a spectrum, not as two opposing sets of ideals. I want men to take up this mantle, so their daughters, sisters, and mothers can be free from prejudice, but also so that their sons have permission to be vulnerable and human too, and in doing so be a more true and complete version of themselves. Part of Watson's address at the headquarters of the United Nations to launch the He for She campaign, 2014. 158. Watson is an outspoken feminist. 159 160 She has promoted education for girls, traveling to Bangladesh and Zambia to do so. 161 In July 2014, she was appointed a UN Women Goodwill Ambassador. 162 That September, an admittedly nervous Watson 158 delivered an address at UN headquarters in New York City to launch the UN Women campaign He for She, which aims to urge men to advocate for gender equality. 163 In that speech she said she began questioning gender-based assumptions at age 8 when she was called bossy, a trait she has attributed to her being a perfectionist. 164 Whilst boys were not, and at 14 when she was sexualized by certain elements of the media. 165 Watson's speech described feminism as the belief that men and women should have equal rights and opportunities, and declared that the perception of feminism as being man-hating is something that has to stop. 158 The speech made worldwide headlines from both major news outlets and fashion blogs, and the organization's website crashed after press coverage of the event. 111 Watson later said she received threats within less than 12 hours of making the speech, which left her raging. If they were trying to put me off women's rights work, it did the opposite. 166. Fumzile Mlambonkyika, the executive director of UN Women, stated, "For a time, there was a conversation about whether feminism was a good thing or a bad thing. Her speech gave us the word back." 111. In 2015, Malala Yousafzai told Watson she decided to call herself a feminist after hearing her speech. 167. Watson's butterfly-themed Flutter by Bear, right, one of 50 Paddington bears along the Paddington Trail in London, auctioned for the NSPCC. Also in September, Watson made her first country visit as a UN Women Goodwill Ambassador to Uruguay, where she gave a speech at the Legislative Palace in Montevideo highlighting the need for women's political participation. 168 In November 2014, Watson designed a Paddington Bear statue, one of 50 located around London prior to the release of the film Paddington, which was auctioned to raise funds for the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, NSPCC. 169 In December, the Ms. Foundation for Women named Watson its Feminist Celebrity of 2014, following an online poll. 170 Watson also gave a speech about gender equality in January 2015, at the World Economic Forum's annual winter meeting. 171. Watson took the top spot on the Ask Men Top 99 Outstanding Women 2015 list on the strength of having thrown her back into women's rights issues. 172 In the same year, Watson was included on the Time 100 list of the world's most influential people, her first ever appearance on the list. For its recap, former The New York Times editor Jill Abramson noted Watson's gutsy, smart take on feminism and called her effort to get men involved refreshing. 173. Watson has cited Gloria Steinem and Maya Angelou as influences. 174 In January 2016, Watson started a feminist Goodreads book club, Our Shared Shelf. 175 The goal of the club is to share feminist ideas and encourage discussion on the topic. One book is selected per month and is discussed in the last week of that month. 175 The first book to be selected was My Life on the Road by Steinem, whom Watson would later interview that February at the How To Academy in London. 176 177 Our Shared Shelf ceased updates in January 2020, but continues to be open as a discussion board for recommendations. 178. On 2016 International Day of the Girl Child, Watson visited Malawi to meet with traditional chiefs and girls who returned to school after being freed from child marriage. 179 Watson has partnered with organizations such as Book Fairies and Books on the Underground to leave literature on public transit for consumption. 174. Watson delivering an address at the Legislative Palace of Uruguay as a UN Women Ambassador in 2014. In March 2017, Watson received backlash for a Vanity Fair photo shoot in which one of the shots had her breasts partly visible, for which some in the news media accused her of hypocrisy. 180 Bemused by the controversy, she argued that feminism is not a stick with which to beat other women but is instead about freedom, liberation, and equality, adding, "I really don't know what my tits have to do with it." 181 180. Watson has discussed her white privilege in feminist spaces. 182 In an interview with British Vogue, she commented, "I saw white feminism coming up again and again, and I was like, hey, this is clearly something that I have to meaningfully engage with. I have to understand this better." 183 She has written about intersectionality for Our Shared Shelf, discussing her self-reflection on what are the ways I have benefited from being white. In what ways do I support and uphold a system that is structurally racist? 184. Time's Up UK and advocacy against harassment. Watson is a founding member of Time's Up UK and coordinated its launch at the 71st British Academy Film Awards. 185 186 Watson also assisted in the establishment of nationwide industry guidelines on bullying and harassment, implemented by the British Film Institute and British Academy of Film and Television Arts. 186 187 She donated £1 million to Time's Up UK in February 2018 and later helped set up the organisation's Justice and Equality Fund in October, which donated to women's groups across the country. 188 Maurice Rossi, an activist on the issue of violence against women, was her guest to the 2018 Golden Globe Awards. 189. In July 2019, Watson helped launch a legal helpline for people who have suffered sexual harassment in the workplace. Legal advice is provided by Rights of Women, a charity which works to help women through the law. 190 In the same year, she joined a G7 gender equality advisory group convened by the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, to call on G7 to make political and economic advances for women within their own countries as well as a centerpiece of foreign policy. 191 She attended their first meeting at the Élysée Palace in Paris in February and attended the 45th G7 summit in August as part of the committee. 192. In an interview with Paris Lise, she voiced her support for transgender rights, reiterating this on Twitter amidst controversy concerning Rowling's remarks on gender identity. 183 193 Watson has spoken out in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. In June 2020, she shared anti-racism educational resources on social media in support of the George Floyd protests after initially participating in Blackout Tuesday, and uploaded a podcast episode onto Spotify interviewing Rennie Edolage about her book Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race. 194. In July 2020, she partnered with Lodge and the WOW Foundation to spearhead a project reimagining the London Underground map, renaming the 270 stops to spotlight women and non-binary people who have shaped the city's history. The initiative will consult writers, museums, and librarians and is set to be published by Haymarket Books on International Women's Day 2021. 195 Watson was among the 400 signatories in a letter calling for the UK government to include women in decision-making roles at the 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference in Glasgow. 196. In June 2021, it was reported that Watson was part of a group of investors funding $12.5 million into Fabric Nano, a startup developing sustainable alternatives to petrochemical products. 197. International issues, Palestine and beyond. In January 2022, Watson showed support for the Palestine cause by posting an image of a pro-Palestinian protest with a "Solidarity is a verb" banner on Instagram. This received backlash from former Israeli Science Minister Danny Danon, who posted on Twitter, 10 points from Greiffender for being an anti-Semite. Israeli ambassador to the UN Gilad Erdan also criticized her. Danon's comment was criticized by Leah Greenberg, a co-executive director of Indivisible Project and Conservative Party peer Saeed Awarsi. 198 199 More than 40 people, including Susan Sarandon, Mark Ruffalo, Miriam Margolyes, Gail Garcia Bernal, Peter Capaldi, Maxine Peake, Viggo Mortensen, Steve Coogan, and Charles Dance, supported Watson in a letter organized by Artists for Palestine UK. 201. In September 2025, in an interview with Jay Shetty on his podcast, On Purpose with Jay Shetty, when asked about her views about the war in Gaza, she stated, "This duality created where we don't seem able to care about the victims of terrorism and care about the genocide that's happening in Palestine at the same time, and both things have to be allowed to be true. You have to be allowed to care about 50,000 civilians dying, 17,000 of which are children, and care deeply about the victims of this awful terrorist attack." 202. Environmental and climate activism. Watson is an activist for environmental justice. 203 and climate change mitigation. 204 In 2019, Swedish researchers from Lund University analyzed the carbon footprints of 10 celebrities including Watson's. 205 Watson's carbon footprint was the lowest of the celebrities analyzed, but her CO2 emissions from flying alone were still 15.1 tons of CO2, 3 times the global average. At the 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference in Glasgow, Watson hosted a panel on climate change with guests including climate activist Greta Thunberg. 206. Public image. Watson at the 2012 Tribeca Film Festival. Watson has often been cited as a role model, though she shies away from the term, stating that it puts the fear of God into her. 207 Her impact on teenage girls' view of women's rights has been referred to as the Emma Watson effect, with respondents from a national citizen service survey stating that her work in activism had inspired them to label themselves feminists. 208, 209, 210. In her initial post-Harry Potter career, she was noted to focus on smaller films rather than big-budget studio films. 89. Adam White of The Independent states that Watson's acting style possesses a very human sensitivity and quiet strength. 89, 211. Describing Watson's off-screen persona, Derek Blossberg of Vanity Fair has called her shy, friendly, intelligent, and down-to-earth. Steinem has described her as way more like a real person than a movie star, while author Belle Hooks considers her to be part of a very different, new breed of actors who are interested in being whole and having a holistic life, as opposed to being identified with just wealth and fame. 111. Watson's character in Harry Potter has had a significant impact on pop culture, the actress has commented. I have met fans with my face tattooed on their bodies. I've met people who used the Harry Potter books to get through cancer. I don't know how to explain it, but the Harry Potter phenomenon steps into a different zone. Watson has been the subject of substantial media attention since the beginning of her career. On her 18th birthday she was photographed by paparazzi attempting to take pictures up her skirt, and she has been victim of numerous stalking threats. Watson does not take selfies with fans, citing security concerns, and instead prefers to talk one-on-one during interactions. 111. In March 2009, she was ranked 6th on the Forbes list of Most Valuable Young Stars 212, and in February 2010, she was Hollywood's highest-paid female star, having earned an estimated £19 million in 2009. 213. In 2017, Forbes ranked her among the world's highest-paid actresses, with annual earnings of $14 million. 214. In 2013, Watson was British GQ's Woman of the Year and topped Empire's list of the 100 sexiest movie stars. 215. 216. Watson was found to be the 6th most admired woman in the world in global surveys conducted by YouGov in 2020. 217. Gin business. In April 2023, Watson, along with her brother Alex, who founded the idea, launched Rena's, a sustainable gin brand. The gin is made from recycled skin grapes and is certified carbon neutral. The Watsons were inspired by their childhood in France and their father Chris Watson's wine business. The name Rena's comes from the French word meaning rebirth, and the gin is an ode to the Chablis wine region. 218. In September 2023, Watson and her brother won the Soho House Award for Breakthrough Entrepreneur for Rena's. 219. In January 2025, it was reported that the company raised $6 million for investment. 220. Personal life. When asked about her religious beliefs in 2014, Watson described herself as a spiritual universalist. 221. In February 2016, Watson was appointed visiting fellow at Lady Margaret Hall, Oxford University. 222. In 2019, she described herself as single with the self-coined phrase self-partnered. 223. 224. On coping with intense fame from a young age, she has said that remaining rooted in her own identity helped her eventually find peace. 225. In 2013, she had become certified to teach yoga and meditation. As part of this certification, she attended a week-long meditation course at a Canadian facility, in which residents are not allowed to speak, in order to figure out how to be at home with myself. 226. 227. Regarding her meditation training, she stated in an interview with Elle Australia that an uncertain future meant finding a way to always feel safe and at home within myself. Because I can never rely on a physical place. 228. Driving offenses. On July 16, 2025, Watson received a 6-month driving ban after a speed camera recorded her traveling at 38 miles per hour 61 kilometers per hour in a 30 miles per hour 48 kilometers per hour zone in Oxford on the evening of July 31, 2024. She was ordered to pay a total of £1,044 to High Wycombe Magistrates Court and given 3 penalty points following a 5-minute hearing which she did not attend. 229 The ban followed 3 previous speeding offences that had resulted in 9 points on her licence and a separate incident on February 6, 2024 in which her Audi S3 was towed after being parked obstructively for nearly 4 hours outside a Stratford-upon-Avon pub. Daniel Jonathan Stevens, born October 10, 1982, is an English actor. He first drew international attention for his role as Matthew Crawley in the ITV period drama series Downton Abbey, 2010 to 2012. He also starred as David in the thriller film The Guest, 2014, Sir Lancelot in the adventure film Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb, 2014, The Beast/Prince in Disney's live-action adaptation of Beauty and the Beast, 2017, Lauren Willis in the biographical legal drama Marshall, 2017, Charles Dickens in the biographical drama The Man Who Invented Christmas, 2017, and Russian Eurovision singer Alexander Lemtov in Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga, 2020. From 2017 to 2019, he starred as David Haller in the FX series Legion. In 2018, he starred in the Netflix horror Apostle, and since 2023, he has starred as Corvo Opposites in the animated series Solar Opposites. In 2024, Stevens starred as Trapper in Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire, and will reprise the role in the sequel, Godzilla x Kong, Supernova. In 2025 he appeared as Father Joseph Steiger in The Ritual. Early life. Stevens was adopted at birth by parents who were both teachers, and grew up in Wales and southeast England. 2-3 He has a younger brother, Jason Andrew Stevens, b. 1984, who was adopted from different biological parents. 3 Stevens boarded on a scholarship at Tunbridge School, a private school in Kent. There he became interested in drama after auditioning for the title role in Macbeth with his teacher, novelist Jonathan Smith. 4-5 From the age of 15, he spent his summers training and performing with the National Youth Theatre in London. Stevens studied English literature at Emmanuel College, Cambridge. 3-6 While at Cambridge, he was a member of the Footlights with Stefan Golazowski, Tim Key, and Mark Watson 7 and was also active in the Marlowe Society. He was first spotted by director Peter Hall at a Marlowe Society production of Macbeth, in which he played the title character alongside Hall's daughter, Rebecca Hall. 8-9-10. Career. In 2004, Stevens began his professional acting career when Peter Hall cast him as Orlando in his touring production of Shakespeare's As You Like It. The tour took the production to the Rose Theatre in Kingston upon Thames, the Brooklyn Academy of Music in New York City, the Curran Theatre in San Francisco, and the Amundsen Theatre in Los Angeles. His debut performance earned him glowing reviews from prominent critics in Britain and the United States 11, 12, 13, 14 as well as a commendation at the 2004 Ian Charleson Awards. 15. In 2006, Stevens starred as Nick Guest in the BBC adaptation of Alan Hollinghurst's Man Booker Prize-winning novel The Line of Beauty. 16 Later that year, he played Simon Bliss in Hay Fever by Noel Coward at London's Haymarket Theatre, alongside Peter Bowles and Dame Judi Dench. The director was Peter Hall. He also performed as Lord Holmwood in an adaptation of Dracula for the BBC, and as Basil Brooks in the BBC Emmy Award-winning film, Maxwell. That same year, he was named one of Screen International's 2006 Stars of Tomorrow. 17. In 2008, Stevens appeared in the BBC adaptation of Jane Austen's novel, Sense and Sensibility, playing Edward Ferrars, and the West End revival of Noel Coward's The Vortex. 18 In January 2009, he appeared on New Year's Day in Agatha Christie's Marple, Nemesis on ITV1 in Britain. 19. He also appeared in an adaptation of The Turn of the Screw featuring future Downton Abbey co-star Michelle Dockery. 20. In June 2009, he returned to the West End, playing Septimus Hodge in an acclaimed revival of Tom Stoppard's Arcadia at the Duke of York's Theatre. 21. In 2010, Stevens got his biggest break 22 when he was cast as Matthew Crawley in the ITV series Downton Abbey, created and written by Oscar-winning 23 screenwriter Julian Fellowes. 24. The series went on to be a global sensation. 25. And has been nominated for several Emmy, BAFTA, Golden Globe, and Screen Actors Guild Awards. The central love story of Matthew Crawley and his distant cousin, Lady Mary Crawley, played by Michelle Dockery, was enormously popular. Determined to move on with his career, Stevens chose to leave the series after finishing the third season and the Christmas special in 2012. 26-27. His exit caused a huge uproar with fans, who took to Twitter and other social media sites to express their anger at the character's death. 28. In November 2011, Stevens guest hosted an episode of Have I Got News for You? In March 2012, he completed shooting Vamps, from Amy Heckerling, and Summer in February, an Edwardian romance film set in an artist colony. 29. Also in 2012, Stevens moved with his family to New York City. 30. When he made his Broadway debut that year opposite Jessica Chastain and David Strathairn in The Heiress. 31. In 2014, Stevens starred in the independent film The Guest, winning critical acclaim for his portrayal of a recently discharged Army veteran who goes on a killing spree to protect his true identity. 32. 33. 34. He earned a Saturn Award for Best Actor nomination for his performance. Also in 2014, he appeared in the magic realism comedy drama film The Cobbler with Adam Sandler and Dustin Hoffman, and in the dark action film May Walk Among the Tombstones with Liam Neeson. He played a simulacrum of Sir Lancelot in the 2014 comedy film Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb with Ben Stiller and Robin Williams. 35. 36. 37. 38. In February 2016, Stevens was cast in the lead role of David Charles Haller in the FX series Legion, an X-Men related drama created by Noah Hawley, and he also starred alongside Anne Hathaway and Jason Sudeikis, giving life to Tim, Gloria's ex-boyfriend, in Colossal. 39. The first season began airing in February 2017 and received critical acclaim. A second season aired the next year, and was renewed for a third season in June 2018. 40-41. In 2017, Stevens played the titular role of the Beast, opposite Emma Watson as Belle, in Disney's live-action adaptation of Beauty and the Beast, directed by Bill Condon. The cast was also accompanied by Luke Evans, Ewan McGregor, Emma Thompson, Ian McKellen, Kevin Kline, Stanley Tucci, and Josh Gad. 42. The film was released in March 2017 to positive reviews, and earned over $1.2 billion in worldwide box office revenue, making it the highest-grossing live-action musical film, the second highest-grossing film of 2017, and the 17th highest-grossing film of all time. 43. 44. 45. At the same year, he appeared in Marshall with Chadwick Boseman, Josh Gad, and Kate Hudson. 46. And The Man Who Invented Christmas, directed by Bharat Nalluri, and co-starring Christopher Plummer and Jonathan Pryce. 47. Stevens at the 2019 WonderCon promoting Legion. In 2018, Stevens starred in the Netflix thriller film Apostle, directed by Gareth Hutt Evans. 48-49. In 2019, Stevens co-starred in the drama Lucy in the Sky, released in September 2019. It co-stars Natalie Portman and John Hamm, and is directed by Legion creator, Noah Hawley. In 2020, Stevens co-starred alongside Harrison Ford in The Call of the Wild, released on February 21, 2020. The film is based on the American classic novel by Jack London. He also returned to Broadway to star in Martin McDonagh's dark comedy Hangman. The Atlantic Theatre Company production co-starred Mark Addy and Ewan Bremner. Stevens played the pivotal role of Mooney. The production was to have a 20-week limited engagement at the Golden Theatre in Manhattan. 50 previews began on February 29, however the production's run was suspended on March 11, before it had officially opened, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. On March 20 the producers announced with regret that the production was closed permanently. All Broadway theaters were shut down soon afterwards. 51 the same year, he appears as an absurdly lascivious Russian crooner in the Netflix musical comedy film Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga, co-starring with Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams. 52. In 2021, Stevens played a robot in the German-language sci-fi romance I'm Your Man. 53, 54, 55. In 2022, Stevens voiced the villain Admiral Hornigold in the animated movie The Sea Beast, which premiered on Netflix. 56, 57. In 2024, Stevens starred in the horror film Cuckoo with Hunter Schafer, Martin Xokas, and Jessica Hennick. 58 that same year he also played a leading role as the veterinarian trapper in Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire 59 with Rebecca Hall and Brian Tyree Henry, directed by Adam Wingard. Stevens also appeared as Frank, a corrupt ex-police detective in Abigail with Melissa Barrera. 60. He has upcoming roles in the biographical drama Swiped with Lily James 61-62, the horror film The Ritual with Al Pacino 63, and the third season of AMC's The Terror, as lead actor and executive producer. 64. Other work. Stevens has narrated over 30 audiobooks, including Casino Royale, Wolf Hall, and War Horse. In 2014, he was nominated for 2 Audie Awards, in the Classic category and Solo Narration, Male, category for Frankenstein. 65. Outside acting, Stevens maintains an interest in writing and literature and is editor-at-large for The Junket, an online quarterly that he co-founded in 2011 with some friends. 66. He was a member of the judging panel for the 2012 Man Booker Prize 2467 and was a regular columnist for the Sunday Telegraph. 68. A cricket enthusiast, he played for the Authors 11 team, which is composed of a number of prominent British writers, in 2012. 69. He also contributed a chapter to the team's book The Authors 11, a season of English cricket from Hackney to Hambledon 70, which was shortlisted for the 2014 Cricket Society and MCC Book of the Year Award. 71. Personal life. In 2009, Stevens married South African jazz singer and singing teacher Susie Harriet. They have 3 children. 72, 73, 74. He is fluent in English, French, and German. Beauty and the Beast is a 2017 American musical romantic fantasy film. It is a live-action remake of Disney's 1991 animated film Beauty and the Beast, itself an adaptation of Jean-Marie Leprince de Beaumont's version of the fairy tale Beauty and the Beast. 6. Produced by Walt Disney Pictures and Mandeville Films. 7. The film was directed by Bill Condon from a screenplay by Stephen Kbosky and Evan Spiliotopoulos. It stars Emma Watson and Dan Stevens as the title characters, with Luke Evans, Kevin Kline, Josh Gad, Ewan McGregor, Stanley Tucci, Audra McDonald, Gugum Bathara, Ian McKellen, and Emma Thompson in supporting roles. 8. The live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast was first announced in April 2014, with Condon attached to direct. The cast members signed on between January and April 2015, and filming took place primarily at Shepperton Studios in England from May to August of that year. The estimated production budget was around $255 million. Beauty and the Beast had its world premiere at Spencer House in London on February 23, 2017, followed by its American premiere at the El Capitan Theatre in Hollywood on March 2. It was then released theatrically in the United States in standard, Disney Digital 3D, RealD 3D, IMAX, and IMAX 3D formats, as well as Dolby Cinema, on March 17. 9. The film received generally positive reviews from critics, who praised its cast, songs, and visual detail. 10. It grossed over $1.2 billion worldwide, becoming the second highest grossing film of 2017 and the 10th highest grossing film of all time. Amongst Disney's live-action adaptation remakes, it is the second highest grossing film to date. The film received several accolades, including nominations for Best Production Design and Best Costume Design at the 90th Academy Awards. Plot: a selfish and unkind prince hosting a ball is visited in his castle by an enchantress disguised as an old beggar woman, who offers him an enchanted rose in exchange for shelter from a storm. When he rebuffs her, she reveals her true form and transforms him into a beast and his servants into household objects before erasing them from the memories of their loved ones. For the curse to be broken, the prince must learn to love someone and have that person love him back before the rose sheds its last petal, or else he will remain a beast forever. Several years later, in a nearby village, Belle, the bookworm daughter of widowed artist Maurice, dreams of adventure while constantly rejecting advances from Gaston, an arrogant